I know what happened? I was the robber. Chapter 1. I'll start my story in the town of Baggs, Wyoming, not much more than a wide spot along State Highway 789, just a few miles north of the Colorado border. Even though this all happened nearly 30 years ago, I vividly remember the early fall evening in 1979 when I climbed out of the 18-wheeler and thanked the trucker for the ride from Laramie. I don't recall the man's name anymore, but I still laugh at him warning me not to forget my rucksack as I scrambled to get out before he headed up to Rawlins. He was needling me for keeping the pack at my feet the entire trip rather than letting him stow it in the rear of the cab. No way I'd let that pack out of my sight. I hopped off the last step and waved as he headed north. In the dying light, I made my way across the road to the only restaurant and hotel in town, the Drifter's Inn. Dog-tired and hungry, I'd been on the run for days and couldn't remember when I'd last slept well or eaten a real meal. I pulled open the heavy double doors and let two drunken highway workers stagger outside before I entered the old wooden building. Inside, I walked down a dark corridor lined with ratty old deer heads and glanced into the open doorway of the bar to my right. The place was packed, and you could have cut the smoke with a chainsaw and sold it. Most of the revelers were highway workers staying at the inn, a few cowboys scattered about, and some hunters, too, judging from their camouflage. A big mahogany bar was stocked with every kind of booze you could imagine, as well as the obligatory gallon mason jars of pickled pig's feet, sausages, and hard-boiled eggs. I softly cursed when I spotted two sheriff's deputies hulking over a man seated at the end of the bar. Edging back from the doorway, I turned toward the restaurant across the hallway. I took a seat at a table for two, with my back against the wall and my pack at my feet. Gazing out the west window, I was just in time to watch the last bit of sun slip behind the sagebrush hills. The joint wasn't too smoky, not nearly as bad as the bar, nor was it as crowded. Drinking was evidently a higher priority than eating for most of the Drifter's guests. Fine with me. I planned to enjoy a quiet meal before I found another ride that night south into Colorado. A waitress brought me a glass of water and a menu. She was around 50 and wore her gray hair in a tight ponytail. Judging from her ruddy complexion, lined and creased from wind and sun, I guessed she lived on a nearby ranch. Her name tag read Donna. "Beef ribs are the Friday night special, hon," she said, as she wiped my table clean. "I won't need that, then," I said, nodding at the laminated menu. "I'll have the ribs." "They ain't that good, though," she said in a whiskey and tobacco-seared voice. "They're pretty tough." "What's good?" "Nothing, really." I chuckled and shrugged my shoulders. "Well, I'm hungry. I gotta eat something." "You probably can't go wrong with a hamburger." "I'll have two, and fries." Donna jotted down my order and moved on to freshen an old rancher's coffee. I sipped my water and kept an eye on the doorway leading to the entrance hallway. I tried to relax a while before I had to hit the road again. All I needed was about half an hour of peace, and I'd be fed and on my way to Colorado. I left my seat for a moment, keeping an eye on my pack, and fetched the Rocky Mountain News from the end of the counter. I just wanted to catch up on the news and enjoy my meal. I was in the middle of the sports page when my food came. I put down the paper and eyed the burgers hungrily, smelling the wonderful aroma of greasy cooking. "Anything else, hon?" she asked in that raspy voice of hers. "Just a check, ma'am." "Check? You ain't even it yet." "I might have to leave quick," I said. "Wouldn't want to stiff you." As if on cue, the two deputies entered the restaurant and took a seat on the other side of the room, next to the doorway. Donna looked over her shoulder and saw the two lawmen. Then she looked at me and spoke low. "You're in trouble with them, ain't you?" I said nothing. "I know 'em both," she said. "Worthless as tits on a boar hog." As scared as I was, I still laughed. "You see the fat one? I went to high school with him. He couldn't track an elephant with a nosebleed in 6 feet of snow. T'other one ain't as tall as his tabletop, but he's a mean little bastard." She looked me in the eyes with kind of a sideways